Leilani, you have been the UN Special Rapporteur for 6 years.
It's true.
And now it's only 1 week to go.
Yeah,
1
week today.
week left as a UN Special Rapporteur on adequate housing. So the classical journalistic question would be, how do you feel about that?
And are you asking me the classical journalist question? Wow.
I do.
Okay.
This is like a TV show, you know, so we can play different rules. It's not a documentary shoot.
Well, I think the classical answer is mixed emotions, but in actual fact, that would be the classical answer. My answer is, I feel great, to be honest. It's been an amazing, crazy journey. 6 years of exceptionally hard work. And I feel super proud. I think so much of the last 6 years has been fun. And I think it's made a difference. In particular, I think working with you on Push was a huge, let's say, game changer. Suddenly, people are talking about housing with an energy and using human rights language and trying to understand how to push governments to do better and to do more. When I started the job, it felt like there was not a lot of action and energy more than that. There wasn't enough energy around this issue, which I think is one of the biggest crises. And now we know for sure, with COVID, we know for sure housing is one of the biggest crises the world is confronted with. And I think that the work and Push the Film has really helped, I don't know, escalate the issue and make people realize there's a lot to talk about here and a lot to do. So I'm feeling good. That's
good. So if we now have audience out there, please send hearts to Leilani, like a big applaud for your amazing work. So send in hearts, because we really want to see the love coming your way, because I think you're amazing. And I'm so happy because, you know, when I started to research Push, I didn't know you. And it's always very hard to understand how to make that, you know, how to make a film. But when I found you and I found somebody with this honest and open heart, it really changed a lot. And actually now I can see a lot of hearts coming in. So it's actually,
yay, it's working.
People like you.
Hearts.
People like you. People like you. And it's actually a good thing. So anyway, I've been trying to talk to you this month. During the COVID crisis, you've been locked down in your basement in Ottawa. Like for the first time, you've been traveling all the time, and suddenly you're in your basement, but you're busier than ever. Why?
Yeah, because housing is the frontline defense against the virus. Every government around the world decided, in keeping with the World Health Organization, that the way to protect, almost every government, the way to protect people against the virus is by telling people to stay home. And of course, the idea of staying home only works for people who have a home, or who have a home where they can wash their hands, or who have a home where they're not living in really crowded conditions. So housing has become huge. And then on top of it, there's economic destruction. Every economy is collapsing. People are losing their jobs. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their mortgages. So what's going to happen? Is everyone going to be evicted and thrown to the streets? And then everyone who gets thrown to the streets gets the virus. And so housing is just everything.
So you talk to governments around the world, and you talk to activists around the world. What are your recommendations to government? Can you just point them up for us, like a quick run over?
Yeah. All homeless people need to be housed, and they need their own bathrooms. That's super important. Congregations of people don't work. No one should be evicted, no, for any reason, anywhere, at any time, unless, of course, harm is in the household. Then that person has to be evicted, but then that person needs a place to live. Those are two really key things that would make a big difference. We have to have a rent relief, mortgage payment relief, so that people aren't worrying, oh my gosh, if I don't pay, am I going to be evicted? That's impossible. People are stressed. COVID is stressful, and we don't need to add to people's stress. And one of the things I'm hoping we'll talk about is we need to already be looking into the future, because we know that what's going to happen is there will be what they call distressed assets, basically big buildings and homes that people can't pay the mortgages on, and that are going to be available for purchase.
Yeah.
And who's going to purchase them? I'm very worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, we put the title of this talk. We've been using this for a while. It's vulture time, and you know, vultures, they eat dead meat on the streets. You know, and so when we did push, push was honestly a journey for me and for you, maybe also, to understand things that we could understand, but we couldn't really pin it down. And during that journey, we understood that the 2008 crisis really changed the housing world. Before there were national landlords, suddenly the new landlords of the planet is a hedge fund. It's financial actors. It's the Wall Street boys, you know, and they found out that even poor people's homes can be amazing places to put their money and to make their money grow.
Yep.
And that has totally changed the housing market and made it so much more expensive to live. It also made it much more expensive for small businesses to survive, restaurants, small corner shops, and so on. And when we talked to Professor Stiglitz, he told us our incomes since 2008 has not risen. It's more or less the same for all of us. And the rich guys are now 10, 100, 20, you know, they are so much more richer than before. And so and I also remember during the financing crisis 2008 that we thought, wow, now people will understand that the financial market is crazy. Now it will go back to something more natural. So now when I hear people saying, wow, this crisis will make us understand the world better, now we will be more responsible, now love will be in the air, I think there is a big risk. I mean, I wish all this, of course, but I think there's a big risk that this crisis might have exactly the same function as the other crisis. It will make the strong even stronger, the weaker even weaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think so. That's where we should put our eyes right now.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't know if you've been trying to scan what's happening in that regard. I've been trying to read as much as I can, but of course it's difficult. But it's not, to me, just that the strong will get stronger. I think right now we're in this situation of survival of the fittest, you know? It's like only a few are going to survive, and it will be those with the most money. And we know who has the most money. It's the big private equity firms, pension funds, insurance companies, asset management firms. And so that's really of concern. And I think it's worse than 2008 in a way, because this is global, which means assets are going to be available everywhere.
Shopping time.
Exactly. Shopping spree. Absolutely. I'm really very worried. And I think there have been a few stories, and maybe you've probably seen more than me, but where, you know, it's like Blackstone, one of the largest private equity firm, you know, has secured a $90 billion fund or whatever, you know, now in the midst of this horrible crisis and virus. So they are poised, from what I'm seeing, but I don't know. What have you read? What have you seen?
No, I have made some calls, and the other week I called to Fredrik Obermeier at the Süddeutsche Zeitung in Munich, who is the people who broke the Panama Papers and been really involved in the Paradise Papers and so on, and have a big insight in this kind of the tax haven world. And he said, oh, well, first I thought that now I guess the housing market is going down. And then he called some housing people in Munich and said, no, no, no. Now people are shopping. A lot of money floats in. He talked about Russian money coming into Munich right now. But I mean, so whoever sits on money, they are acting now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing, and here is, this is, I think, is scary and interesting. The states are now emitting new money. So they're creating a lot of new money that goes into the system, the financial system. And we know that people like Blackstone, they can take shares. The hedge funds can always take a little split of all new money coming in. The financial system can, they always have some fees around, you know. And so the states are kind of already pumping in money their way. But, and the states are doing this to save the business, to save the citizens. But then we have people like Blackstone and many, I mean, what we also learned in the film from Roberto Saviano is that the tax havens once upon a time was a little shady corner of the world economy. Now it's the world economy. So almost every big corporation have subsidiaries in tax havens. So here we have states with taxpayers' money helping business, and the business are in tax shelters. So this is like, it's, you know, for me, it's like we have this social contract in so deep into our societies. We believe in the fair and think, you know, that we should work fair, we should be responsible. But suddenly, these guys, they want subsidies, but they don't want to pay taxes. So I wonder, have you seen anything around that? I actually got a question here from sent in. If you want, you can send in questions. But I mean, here is one from Christian Aurora, who is actually working for Australian TV, but is based in Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
So he says, from venture capitalism to vulture capitalism, Denmark and Poland have said they won't give bailouts to companies registered in tax havens. Though I don't think Blackstone is, he says. Should other countries follow suit?
Blackstone does operate through tax havens. I had one of my team members do a little bit of research on that, and he discovered that in fact, Blackstone does operate at least some of their businesses through tax havens. So it would be erroneous to think Blackstone isn't captured by this. Whether they do their residential real estate through tax havens, I think we still need to investigate further. But one of the things that I think we have to remember, and we certainly learned this through Push and through my research, is the power that the private equity firms and asset management firms have. It's not just that they have money, they have political power. And I think, you know, rest assured that they are sitting at the table when these economic stimulus packages are being developed. And I would be very surprised if any economic stimulus package is developed that doesn't somehow either benefit them or at least not go against them, if you see what I mean. And so when I looked at the breakdown of the US stimulus package when it was first, the $2 trillion were first introduced, if you look at it visually, you'll see that in the middle, there's a beautiful visual representation of who got what money of the 2 trillion, and corporations got a huge percentage of that 2 trillion. I think close to half. And so, I mean, what is that? Which corporations? What does that look like? Who is that benefiting? So I think we have to be super cognizant that only a few governments will take a position like Denmark and Poland to say no tax haven shall benefit from our economic stimulus package. I think that would be an amazing world model, global model. Now I know what I'm going to push for, or how I'm going to push back in the next weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
We have to keep pushing back, and I hope we can keep doing these pushback talks, because I think we have to keep on it. We have to stop only talking about the virus and comparing death
Exactly.
in different countries because we all go insane. So we have to
And
we
get
have now
depressed.
we have to try to look into the future a little bit, because that's, you know, understanding Blackstone and others is that they are extremely good at monitoring, feeling what's going on in the global economy.
Definitely.
Blackstone in 2008 already sat on a pile of money. So they sold off a lot of stuff 2007 because they knew, they could understand that it was going down. So, I mean, now, you know, 10, 12 years later, Blackstone is so much stronger than they were at that time. And they are in so many more countries. So of course, their hands, or they really understand what's going on. So I think that's also why they are now really out there ready to shop.
Yeah. I do think
So what can governments do to stop this happening?
Yeah, well, I think the Denmark and Poland move is pretty interesting. And, you know, what I'd like to do is figure out who gets captured when you say that, who gets excluded from stimulus package when you say if you are running through a tax haven, you don't get stimulus. That will be super interesting. I think governments need to, I mean, okay, what they've done right now is they've said, we're in an emergency situation. We're going to be active. We're going to throw money. They're throwing a lot of money at trying to address this situation. What they need to do is they need to move in and start buying distressed assets, in my opinion, and recreating what we call public assets. They need to buy hotels that are falling down and repurpose them for deeply affordable housing. They need to buy all of these apartment buildings that may be available now at a discounted cost. There's the notion of the right of first refusal. They should exercise that, where they get to bid on these distressed assets before anyone else, and start regulating these actors. I do think, compared to 2008, we are in a different position. I think the consciousness around this, around them as vultures, is way higher than it was in 08 and 10 and 2013, when they were really active. I think Push the film has had a lot to do with that, actually, and I hope my work has too. People are no longer just like, oh, okay, yeah, these multinationals can come in and eat up our cities. I think people are starting to already push back in major way. Look at what's been happening before the pandemic in Barcelona and Berlin and Cape Town and so many other places.
I can see there is a lot of comments coming in on the Facebook. I'm trying to see here. Evelyn Hamdens, so much respect for your work. I've seen the film and it's fantastic. Thank you. Brandon Agnew says, thank you for your global leadership and advocacy. Thanks for documenting your work in the film. You're a superhero. Yes, you are. And we have Brian Peelan. Good listen to Leilani Farha. She was our big interview in the issue of View magazine, which looked at the housing crisis in Ireland. And we have Julie Lapalme, who says, let's lobby governments to prevent a mass property asset grab a la 2008. Right? We have David Magdal in LA, who says, great. And he also asks how it's tough for the small business in these days. Yes, it is, David. What can we do? We have to think about that. So, and we also have some other questions.
Can we just stop on that small business? Because this is one of the things that worries me. And Saskia Sassen talks about this. She talks about cities becoming monocultural or something like this. Yeah. And I've likened cities, to airports, that they're becoming like airports, where it's only multinationals who have the shop front. And I actually think what was raised about small business is really important. I'm fearful that only the big corps, Zara and H&M, will continue to survive post-pandemic. I've heard the opposite. I've heard, no way. It's the entrepreneurs who can be more responsive and come up with new ways of dealing with a new economy. They'll be the survivors, the winners. I hope that's true. But I really worry, because do we really want our cities to be even more corporate owned? I mean, it's a real fear.
Yeah. So to people out there, keep sending us hearts, because that makes us happy. We are like so silly. So hearts, like it's
Makes a
like
difference.
we are sheep, you know. We are no, but it's good with hearts. We also like wine, but it's. I mean, I'm actually drinking water here, but
Okay, no.
but anyway. So please send hearts, because we like it. We are not going to run for a very much longer time, because these shows shouldn't be on forever. But put questions in under the broadcast here, and if we don't answer them now in live, we will do it later. I have a few questions earlier on, before when we posted this. One from Piotr Boroslavsky in Canada. I don't know what town, but it's a big country. I know Canada, so
Pretty big.
what kind of immediate policies should residents be demanding from the municipalities to stop prolonged real estate vultures from buying low-income rental properties? What can they do? What can they ask for?
What I said before about governments using their right of first refusal to buy distressed assets applies to cities as well. And I've been saying that before the pandemic. We need cities to step up. They don't always have tremendous capacity, but they have some capacity. They need to step up and, one, stop selling off public assets, and two, start buying assets that they can make public. I think it's absolutely key. Cities have been under such stress, so they've been selling off their lands to make money, basically. And that's it has to stop. That's why we're in the situation we're in with this pandemic. That's why we have so many homeless people and people living in conditions where they can't protect themselves against this virus. So the virus is a total wake-up call. I mean, it's a nightmare in so many ways, but it is a wake-up call that the conditions we were living in before the pandemic don't work for huge segments of the population.
I have a question from Tamara White in New Jersey, US. How do we continue the momentum of emergency housing for the homeless during COVID era and transition it into a permanent housing solutions and permanently improved shelter system? This is something you've been working on for a long time.
Yeah, well, we need to think about how we're going to do that. But I do love the move of getting homeless people off the streets and out of shelters and into even hotels, because I think it's really hard politically then for governments to dehouse these people, to say, okay, pandemic's over, go back to the streets. I think that doesn't look good for any government, and we have to really capitalize on that somehow. These are human rights obligations. So in fact, all they're doing right now is meeting their human rights obligations. When you house homeless people, that's just like what they should be doing anyway. So we can use human rights as the leverage, I think, to say, hey, look, you did so well during the pandemic. You started to meet your human rights obligations. Keep going. You can't go backward, because that's against human rights law too, going backward.
I have some more questions, and some of them are a little bit too detailed, from Sonia in Langley in British Columbia. She lives in a house which is like really bad. It's owned by some like Blackstone-like company with mold and mildew and so on, and very high rent. Could she kind of, in this situation, demand to get moved because of she wants to be close to her family? I mean, how do you? This is like, we're talking about the big thing, but you also have these really small issues that are really mean something in people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I can't weigh in on that specific situation because it depends on provincial law, and I don't want to get into those details. But I will say you should really keep following my Twitter over the next week in particular, because I'm going to make a move against these big institutional landlords, some of whom are in Canada. One in particular, in the next week, I'm going to make a move and expose that what they're doing, these deplorable conditions they're making people live in, are really contrary to human rights, and trying to get them to realize that they are engaged in an area that is a human right. It's not just a commodity. So I can't speak to that specific situation, but just to say these big landlords have to understand that it's not, they may be in a business, but it's the business of human rights.
So that's a cliffhanger for all of us to hang out, follow Leilani, and you should also now start to follow, because I have a few questions here. You're leaving your role as a special, so you have a new title coming up. What is your new title?
I do. I'm the global director of The Shift. So anyone who saw Push, you saw that Fredrik ended the film with the shift sort of taking off, and it has taken off. So I remain committed to the pursuit of a better world and the right to housing. And I'll be the global director of this movement to secure the right to housing. And I've got an amazing team behind me. None of this happens on my own. Of course, everyone should know that. Of course, I am but one person. I have a huge team behind me. Well, not huge, but a 4-person strong team behind me who make things happen. So that's what I'll do. And the shift, the aim is to show that there is a global movement working to secure the right to housing.
There's also a follow-up question here, Leilani.
Oh, yeah.
Is there someone taking over the position as a UN Special Rapporteur on Advocacy?
Of course there is. His name is Raj, and presumably he'll make himself known to all of you in due time.
Okay, so we'll have to follow him too. And we will wish him all the best. It's a tough job. I've seen you working really hard. Yeah. So it's a tough job. Traveling the globe. Well, it's a tough job not traveling the globe also, of course.
Right, apparently.
Sure it's not easy. We have Talene who asks, how can we get involved? Would love to do more to help you, Leilani, and organizations that are working on this.
Yeah, so hopefully my team will put up on, I don't know how it all works, but in this Facebook Live somehow, presumably they can comment somehow and put up how you can get involved. We have a website. You can just simply fill out the form and we'll be in touch with you about different possibilities. One of the ideas we're having is to try to engage people at the local level and ensure that we get little chapters of the shift set up around the world. We already have one in New Zealand, in Auckland, based in Auckland, and we anticipate maybe a little shift chapter in Ireland, we're hoping. And I think this is going to start evolving now that I'll be able to spend the bulk of my time, and my team can spend the bulk of their time on growing the shift.
Yeah. So, and I should probably also tell you something about Push the Film. So Push the Film is, as you know, released in many countries around the world. And we get a lot of frustrated people writing to us, especially from the US and from the UK. In the UK, we released the film theatrically. We got amazing reviews in The Guardian, in The Times, and many other newspapers. And the film was booked all over the country. Nicholas Burton from the Grenfell Firehouse was booked to travel the country and talk about the film and the issues. Then the virus hit the world, and so it's right now down. We are talking to different players in the UK to maybe put it up online, but it's also very risky. So we are a bit stressed because we are losing a lot of money, and we don't really have so much money. So if you know any rich people who want to support the distribution of the film in the UK and in the US, we had a great theatrical premiere booked at the IFC Center next week. So we were supposed to be in New York right now doing interviews. And then the film was booked all over the US, like 20 cities. And right now we don't really know how to move it. And we can't go, I mean, of course we hope that we can release it on theaters, but before that we can't release it online. So because there's a lot of these rules in the world of cinema. So if you release it online, you kill off the other options. So unfortunately, you guys sitting in the UK or in the US have to wait a little bit. It's a bit frustrating, yes. But that's how it is. So, but for the rest of you, go and watch Push the Film. It's on Vimeo. And you can find it through our push the film Facebook, and tell people to buy it, because it, you know, the film was booked for special screenings and theaters in so many countries right now, and it's all stopped. If you are a group, a university, or an NGO, you can, through us, buy Vimeo codes. So even if you're in the US and the UK, you can actually buy codes, and you can organize a smaller screening, like a special event, and then you can do your own Zoom event and have a Q&A. So contact us for that. You can find all the details on our Facebook site also. So that's what I would like to say. Leilani, any last words?
Yeah. One of my amazing team members sent, just to, you know, to go back to where we always should go, financialization of housing. Someone just sent me from my team an article about Blackstone is basically being battered by COVID as well. And so they've had some loss in profits. So maybe they're feeling a squeeze too. Somehow I don't think it's going to stop them, but it's good to know.
And actually, if you have friends in Australia, the film is now available in Australia. So you can now watch it on Vimeo also in Australia. So it's basically now, well, it's locked also in South America, because we're waiting for some things there also. It's like, it's a bit crazy. We are like a very small company, but we're trying to do good things, and sometimes it works.
You're doing very cool things.
So one more time to all of you, send hearts to Leilani. She's only 1 week to go, 1 week to go as the UN Special Rapporteur. And when we now close this little broadcast, you can still share it with friends. And for the people who hate Facebook, with all the good reasons, we will also put it up on YouTube, so you can see it there and share it and comment on it. So let's stay positive. Let's stay active. Let's monitor what the big guys are doing, and let's lobby our governments so they don't give money to the people who already have too much. Let's share. We're all good at sharing the pain of this crisis, but we don't want them to be even stronger, because then it's bad for all of us. Leilani, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Almost.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Almost done.
Let's talk next week. Let's make a new one next week. We will announce it soon.
Okay.
So take care, all of you. Send more hearts.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. See you.